We're back. This is Renovate and Build with Jim and Sandra, powered by Fairtrade Works.
Allergies, allergies, something's living on my skin.
Okay, if you suffer from allergies, you know what Paul Simon is talking about. Good morning, and good morning to you, Jim. I know you can relate too well to allergies.
Certainly. Good morning, everybody. Yes, Sandra, I'm looking forward to speaking with Jennifer Van Everett in just a few moments about allergy-free homes. And I obviously need something because I'm always sniffling throughout the year in the office. So.
I know, it's tough, isn't it? And good morning. You're listening to Renovate and Build here on CIL 650. And today we're talking about different new ways of looking at construction and development. That is what Fairtrade Works is all about. It's a new platform for construction that provides consumers with a third-party construction advisor to help them through their scope of their project, the tendering to a qualified and vetted trades pool, project management, legal contracts, and even an escrow service. Third party is the key. We're your advocates, and we're working for you to ensure fixed pricing and guaranteed timelines.
And Sandra, part of our business model at Fairtrade Works is to promise to educate as we service, not only to our consumers, but our tradespool and our Fairtrade Works team. And this is always, and this is how we always meet such interesting people like our next guest, Jennifer Van Everett. She is a designer and writer, a broadcaster for the CBC, and writes for the Globe and Mail and many others articles and publications, including Allergic Living. She's here to talk to us this morning about how our homes are killing us, and it may not be the carpets and drapes which you'll jump to right away. And I honestly think there may actually be something in my home, so I'm very happy she's here this morning.
Jennifer, it sounds like you've come at the right time. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Jennifer, we both suffer from allergies, and I know that the homes, we've talked about this many times, that we grew up in must have been killing both of us. Allergies, as Jim said, the sniffles and the sneezes, because once we moved out, we were fine.
Yeah, that's not an uncommon thing.
And apparently it's not just the dust, the mold, and pollen that we always thought growing up. I guess you have other things like, hidden dangerous allergens in some of the construction industry products that we're using. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is absolutely the case.
So, Jennifer, what are the main allergens you find that consumers are experiencing, in their homes? What are causing the main problems for consumers?
Right. Well, I think things are kind of divided into a couple of different categories. One is sort of true allergens like mold and dust and pollen and things that are actually kind of trapped in the things that we put inside our homes. So there are ways we can design our homes that those things don't tend to sort of propagate inside our houses, because a lot of times people associate those things with being outside, but a lot of the times the things that we actually bring into our homes make it worse inside for those things. And then also VOCs and other sort of chemicals are the other side of the equation. And so things like the paints we use or insulation we use or chemicals found in just about every product, flooring, sealants, all kinds of stuff, can also be bad for triggering asthma, headaches, other kinds of reactions as well. So sometimes it's things that are sort of propagate dust mites and things like that, and other times it's things that are bad on the chemical side.
Jennifer, what do you recommend for those of us who want to design a hyperallergenic space?
Sure. Well, there are, like I said, there's sort of a few key culprits in the home that trigger allergies and asthma. So, and like I said, dust mites, mold, and VOCs are the main ones to keep in mind. And one of the biggest places where you find those things, and one of the things that will make the biggest difference in any home, is actually your flooring. And one of the biggest no-nos for anyone who has allergies and asthma is carpeting. And a lot of people, I think a lot of us grew up with carpeting. It's a little less popular now. But
Shag carpeting.
Yeah, exactly. When I grew up, just about every surface was carpeted. And it's one of those things that even if you vacuum regularly, even if it doesn't matter how new it is, how much you clean it, it harbors dust mites, it harbors mold, and it emits VOCs. And so it really is kind of a triple threat. Like, if a lot of green designers or sort of people who design for health will tell you, number one thing is get rid of the carpet at all costs. Because even if you get it steam clean, it's interesting. You'll talk to people and they'll say, oh, well, steam cleaning will get rid of all that stuff, but actually dust mites and mold both thrive on moisture. So when you steam clean, you're actually pushing moisture further down into the carpet, and you're actually creating a better habitat for those things. And so a lot of times people think they're doing something that's actually making things better, but it makes things worse. So the first thing I would say is if you're designing for health, for a hypoallergenic space, don't use carpet and remove any carpet that you have. And sometimes I know that can be a little bit pricey, but it's one of those things that will probably make the single biggest difference. Because also every time you walk across the carpet, the dust will kick up and the VOCs kick up, and it literally just throws everything up into the air. Then it goes into your lungs and into your nasal passages and stuff, and it's actually triggering all those allergies. And so it's a really good thing. So for flooring, hard surfaces are always better. Because they're really easy to clean and they don't harbor all that stuff. So things like wood, ceramic tile, bamboo, cork, all of those kinds of things are great. And when I say hard surface flooring, the only thing to kind of warn people against is sometimes laminate flooring can have it's made from actually sawdust and glues to hold it all together. And so sometimes those glues are actually are made from formaldehyde, which is also a chemical that can trigger asthma in a lot of people, and even in people who aren't all that allergic, sometimes formaldehyde can trigger them. And also vinyl flooring, you see now it's quite popular, these vinyl plank flooring, that stuff also tends to off-gas quite a bit, and so that's bad on the VOC end of things. And when I say VOCs, I mean volatile organic compounds, which are chemicals that kick up into the air. They come off of these products and kick up into the air, and so that can trigger asthma. So staying natural is sort of the biggest thing for your flooring, if you can. And then a few other things that will make a big difference for a hypoallergenic space. One is the paint that you use. These days it is so easy to find no VOC paint. It's also, you can find low VOC paint, but I always really strongly recommend if you can get no VOC paint. There's not any strict regulations on what is low, quote-unquote, low VOC, so it's better to just get no VOC paint because it's out there, it's available. And what that means is there are fewer of those chemicals swirling around in your space that are coming off that paint and going into your air, and I find it makes an enormous difference. I'm asthmatic, and I have a lot of trouble being around paints that are regular paints or sometimes even low VOC paints, but I can actually be around no VOC paint and have no effects from it at all. A few other things to keep in mind, too, are to avoid particle board if you can. So things like a lot of times when you get cheap kitchen cabinets, kitchen counters, bookcases, a lot of stuff like that is made from particle board, and that, too, like the laminate flooring I was talking about, often contains formaldehyde and other off-gassing chemicals. So if you can, again, go natural, so go for wood cabinets if you can. If they're a little too pricey, you can always buy used ones or, keep the ones you have and just reface them. A lot of times that's even better than putting in something that's new and the sort of cheaper particle board stuff. And for counters, it's better to go natural again, so stone. Stainless steel still makes a nice counter. You can use ceramic tile. So those kinds of things are better in terms of furnishings and stuff. And then actually speaking of furnishings too, one thing for creating a hypoallergenic space which makes a huge difference too is using furniture that's either wood or glass or leather. So things like have a leather sofa instead of an upholstered sofa, because then it doesn't gather dust and mold in the same way that carpets do. So leather is, you can wipe it down. It doesn't harbor dust mites and stuff like that. So it's a great excuse to go get yourself a nice leather sofa.
I just wrote that down. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And then things like glass tables or wood tables, things like that, or wood chairs and things are always better than anything that's upholstered or plush that can sort of harbor all kinds of things. And then one last thing, too, is I would really recommend that people be aware also of all the kind of finishing products that they use. So things like a lot of people think, I'll get this natural floor, and then they put a chemical sealant on it. So it's just to be aware when you or when your contractor is choosing sealants or caulking or, all the different little things that we use to finish off spaces, that you try to find the ones that are as kind of healthy or low VOC as you possibly can, and that'll make a big difference. And actually just a couple other things, too, that have less to do with actual products, but one thing that's also really important for creating a hypoallergenic space is to keep the moisture level down, because, again, the dust mites love moisture. A lot of people don't realize that, and And dust is a really common allergen and a really common thing to trigger asthma as well. So,
like a dehumidifier, you mean?
Dehumidifier. The other things that people recommend is absolutely make sure to use your kitchen fan and your bathroom fan. And if you have high humidity in your home, you can leave those running most of the time, and it will actually make a really big difference. So ventilation is key. Keeping the air moving, so you want to have those fans going, and a dehumidifier can make a big difference, absolutely, especially in a space like a basement that's more likely to have a higher humidity and stuff. And even picking up a hydrometer, which is a gauge for to measure the moisture in your home, is not all that expensive. And any moisture level, you want it around 50% or less. And then if you have higher than that, you can start looking at different options. You can get whole home humidification systems, or dehumidification, or you can just get sort of room dehumidifiers. But the main thing too is sort of tackling the source of the moisture as well. So making sure that you're fixing any leaks there are, any cracks in your foundation, any plumbing issues, anything like that might be allowing any problems with your roof or your siding, things like that. So you want to make sure that your house isn't allowing moisture in as well. So that's another sort of element to the discussion about hypoallergenic spaces too.
Very helpful. You're listening to Renovate and Build on CIL 650 with Jim and Sandra, powered by Fair Trade Works. We're speaking with Jennifer Van Evra about creating hypoallergenic spaces today. Jennifer, I was going to ask, about the designers involved in this process. So many of us think of designers as people who just create beautiful spaces for us, but do you feel that there's going to actually be more designers on the market now assisting homeowners to create spaces that are healthy?
Absolutely. I think it's already starting to happen, actually. It's really interesting now when you talk to, there are already designers who are specializing either because they have allergies themselves or because they've had clients who have had bad allergies or chemical sensitivities, or their children have bad asthma or things like that. So some designers have kind of had to learn along the way and do research as they're going to sort of learn about the different products that are available. Other ones, like I say, have been affected themselves. But it's interesting that what's really great is that designers more generally, I think, are starting to understand the importance of designing healthier homes in general. So you used to say things like, talk about VOCs or formaldehyde or things like that, and it was like you were speaking a foreign language, whereas now there's just a much more sort of common general knowledge, I think, that's happening among designers. But also, like you say, there are ones that are definitely starting to specialize in this area, and quite wisely so, because I think it's definitely something that, like, all three of us are sufferers and certainly could benefit from people that are helpful in that way. So I think there are a lot of people out there. I mean, there are millions of people who suffer from allergies in North America. So the smart designers are getting on the case.
That's cool, Jennifer. I got a question. As well as designers and kind of the people on the install side, are manufacturers also jumping on board and realizing that more and more of us are getting severe allergies, and we need to turn to more kind of hypergelic solutions? And obviously this will be kind of more cost prohibitive for some companies, but I'm sure all of them or some of them aren't all embracing change.
Yes, exactly. It's true that there are. Well, it's interesting because there are more and more manufacturers that are getting on board. Like you say, I mean, obviously there are usually cost issues associated with change, and obviously a lot of the products that materials that they're using a lot of times they're using because they're cheaper than wood or cheaper than leather or things like that. And so there's a price tag, like you say, that comes with it, and some manufacturers don't necessarily want to pay the price for a healthier product. But it's interesting that more and more manufacturers are starting to get on board, and it's actually for a couple of reasons. One is that regulators are slowly catching up. So in some jurisdictions, especially in California, there are materials that people aren't allowed to use anymore, and we start to hear of that more and more, where you start to see that things are labeled formaldehyde-free, or in some jurisdictions, that BPA isn't allowed in certain things. There's sort of one by one, these chemicals get singled out, and that more and more products are being recognized as problematic and then being sort of pulled. So a lot of manufacturers are either responding to new regulations, or they are anticipating regulations that are coming up, and so they recognize that they're going to have to make a change, so might as well get ahead of it. Also, what's happening, which is really interesting, is that in the industry there are now more and more green certifications, or certifications where a product will actually say it's been certified by a particular third-party certification body. And those are becoming more popular and more common. And so manufacturers say, hey, I'd like that green check mark on my product, because when people are looking for something that's healthy, they're going to look for that check mark. And so they start to try to adhere to better practices, because they recognize that in the long run it'll mean more business for them. So for some of them, like you say, there's still plenty of old school products out there that are not great for you at all. But I would say that more and more manufacturers are starting to recognize that people want products that are healthy. People want products that aren't going to cause them asthma and allergies and things like that. And they're also getting better about labeling. It was interesting last couple of weeks ago, I think it was, that Clorox announced that they were going to start labeling the ingredients in the fragrances of their products, which to date no manufacturer does. So they're actually going to start naming the chemicals that are in their fragrances, which they're not obligated to do in any way. They just are. There's more and more transparency starting to happen, I think, just across the industry in terms of the things that we bring into our homes. So it's
not expected from a brand like Clorox.
Well, that's it. There's an old school brand that you would and that we associate with. They make SOS pads and bleach and all of these, and all these sort of chemical cleaning products, but they even are ahead of the regulators. So it's interesting, and they get lots of good press for it, and lots of more product allegiance and things. So I think the smarter manufacturers are recognizing that things are really headed this way, and they're headed this way quite quickly, and that if they actually step ahead of it, if they're the ones at the forefront, then they look great. People will buy their products, and their competition is left having to catch up. And so there's also quite a bit of it's a competitive edge thing. So I think, even though for some people it may be a little pricier, manufacturers are realizing that it's ultimately better business as well as better health for their customers.
I always say, what's the price of breathing, right? As an asthmatic.
Yeah, I know.
What would you like? I'll pay you any amount.
I know, that's it, and I always say that too with people when they're buying furniture and things like that too, is that, I know it hurts to buy the leather sofa or the slightly more expensive countertop and stuff, but if it's a couple $100 or a few $100, to be able to breathe better, or sleep better, that it makes all the difference in the world. It's worth any amount of money.
Jennifer, before we let you go, could you please list 5 of the top new products available that are hypoallergenic? I know you're an expert in this area, so we're going to put you in the hot seat.
Sure. Well, let me think. It's funny because in a way, sometimes the best new products are actually the best old products. So I would, so things like wood flooring and things like that I would always recommend. But there are a few things that are sort of newer products that I would recommend. One of my favorites is actually a type of insulation can be not so great too, that there are different types of insulation that you put in your walls. And there's one that's called Ultra Touch that, if you can believe it, is actually made from recycled blue jeans.
I did hear this story.
Yeah.
I read a blog on it. It's so interesting.
It's really interesting, and I loved that. And what's interesting is we're putting it in our own house, and what's interesting about it is reading all the specs and things is that it actually has the same insulative ratings and the same sound ratings and things as really good insulation. And it actually has no health warnings on it. So it basically says on the package that you can, hand it to your children to play with. It's so safe that it's got nothing in it that could cause a problem. And so that's pretty amazing when you see a construction product that basically comes with no warnings whatsoever. So that's the kind of thing that I like. Another product that I like for countertops is there's a great product called Ice Stone, which is actually it's some people like granite and some people not so much. The thing that's nice about Ice Stone is it's actually a mix of concrete and glass, and so you choose the kind of chips of glass that you want to have inside it, and you can custom make the color of your counter, and it just glistens. When you see one of these countertops, it just looks amazing, and so there's no off-gassing whatsoever. It's no problems at all. So that Ice Stone is another one that I really like in terms of countertops. In terms of flooring, one thing I like these days is the planks. It's made ceramic tile that's made to look like wood flooring. And so you can buy ceramic tiles now in kind of planks, and they look beautiful and very, they have all the nice qualities of ceramic in that, they're very easy to clean, they're very durable, they're not expensive. It's one of the cheaper ways to put down flooring. And what's great is you can also put a heat mat underneath it, those great electric heat mats that allow the floor to be heated radiantly. And that's also something to keep in mind for people with allergies and asthma. Is the more you can have radiant heating as opposed to forced air heating, you're blowing less stuff around. So if you can put those heat mats underneath a floor and sort of heat your room a little bit that way, then that can make a really big difference as well and stop the dust from getting blown around. And other than that, I would say sort of old school. Well, actually, and then for flooring too, cork I also really like, which is not a new product, but it's newer in the sense that now you can buy just about every kind of pattern and stuff that they just can be quite beautiful. And people think cork like a bulletin board, but it doesn't look like that. There are ones that look like wood. There's ones that have all different sort of patterns and texture on them, and they come in darker colors or lighter colors, and there's all kinds of things. And cork is very, very durable. It's a renewable resource, so it's good for the environment. And so that's one that I would recommend too. And then on flooring too, if I can throw in one more flooring one,
sure.
Bamboo I like a lot too, because that's one that's quite durable, also a renewable resource. It tends to be a little bit pricier, but it's one that really does the trick. Like it's very, very durable. It's a good no problems for asthma and allergies. The only thing with that one is to make sure, again, to find out what it's been sealed with. It's great if you can get one that has a green certification or things like that as well. And then beyond that, I'd say again, what's old is new. That go for leather, wood, glass, all the stuff that our grandparents used. Even old linoleum, not vinyl, but the real linoleum is a good thing to use. Those are all the things that a couple generations ago was the stuff they used. Skip all the stuff that we used in the generations when we were growing up, and go back another generation or two, and then that's the kind of stuff that will help keep you healthy.
Very helpful.
Very cool, Jennifer. You really are a wealth of information there. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you joining us here on Renovate and Build.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care. We've been speaking with designer and writer of Allergic Living, Jennifer Van Evera. If you'd like to read Jennifer's articles in Allergic Living, you can visit their website at allergicliving.com.
And if you love native art, want to support artists, and you want to experience Aboriginal customs, you won't want to miss our next guest. He is going to tell you all about the latest social enterprise model in Vancouver. That's next. Stay with us.
There's still lots more ahead. This is Renovate and Build, powered by Fair Trade Works with Jim and Sandra.